Hello, sir. Mr. Praveen Kumar, Secretary, Ministry for Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, Radhakrishnan sir.
Yeah. So, for the first time since India's independence, a Ministry for Skill Development and Entrepreneurship has been formed to focus on enhancing employability of the youth through skill development. How tough is to align the entire ecosystem of skill development in a country like India onto the government-led framework, if you can explain.
See, when this ministry was formed in 2014, the people under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister took an innovative approach to skill development. So instead of being a typical government-driven scheme where government decides everything, it became an industry-driven scheme. The skill development was envisaged as to be driven by the industry, for the industry, of the industry, because they are the final users of the skill. So towards that, it's kind of a PPP where funding was by government, but the design of the programs were done by the industry. For this, what sector skill councils were formed. Sector skill councils for each sector. Industries driven companies, not-for-profit companies were formed, which used to decide everything about the short-term training programs, like what kind of training should be done, what should be the curriculum of the training, what kind of trainer should be there and how they should be trained, what job role should be taken up depending on the demand, and then what kind of assessment should be done. So industry was given the responsibility of deciding the entire training curriculum with the assumption that industry will know better compared to government on what is the requirement of the employees, what kind of employees they want. Even in the long-term training system, which I mean ITIs, the industry linkage was increased. The concept of dual system of training was brought in, where an ITI can partner with the industry, and the students, while taking theory class and basic lab class in the ITI, can go for advanced hands-on experience in the industry. So almost 1,000 MUs were signed over this period on this. And the concept of Flexi MU was brought in. Flexi MU is more involved, in which a company can design the ITI program according to the needs, its needs, and the theory gets given in the ITI and the training gets done in the industry itself. And then adoption of ITIs was also encouraged, where the governing body was driven by the industry, the company adopting that ITI. So all these things were brought in, where the industry linkage was emphasized. A lot of weaknesses also came in the system, like it became the training provider started deciding who will train whom. So the linkage with the district, etc., was a little poorer, which was there in other programs. But in the nutshell, this industry-driven approach has led to the skill development being relevant. It is seen from the fact that recently we launched a portal called ASEEM, which is a directory of all skilled people, certified skilled people in the country. We launched it in July. 1.2 crore people have been onboarded on that. On that portal, with the click of the mouse, you can locate, if you want 10 plumbers in any district of the country, you can locate on that, and then you can connect with those 10 people or 20 people, whoever you want to connect with, so as to employ them. So the success is that in 4 months of its launch, around 10 lakh job offers have been made by the industry on this portal. So which reflects that industry has also found this portal useful. So this is the way we have evolved this Ministry of Skill Development as a facilitator and also as a standard setter, so that the standards are there in the country, the skilling ecosystem. So someone comes with a skill certificate, and industry should be assured that he has certain competencies. That part was done by the ministry, the standard setting, the uniformity, the regulator, all this was brought in, and the facility and funding for the skill industry. That was a broad parameter on which Ministry of Skill Development tried to marry this industry-led drive and the government systems. And reasonable success has been achieved in that.
Can we claim that India is the first country to train large number of youth so far in the world?
No, each country goes for skilling, but this kind of a short period, the kind of a change which occurred, we can claim that change has been brought in the last 5 years. That has been tremendous. But we are miles to go. Lot of many people to be skilled still. I mean, there's no end. We can't
True,
sit
true.
on our this thing that okay, we have skilled, so happy. It's a, and we are competing in a very, very competitive world in trade and manufacturing, where small margins mean quite a lot. And all countries like China, etc., Germany, etc., focused on skilled workers. So we have to keep on focusing and keep on evolving.
So, do your programs cover only unemployed youth outside the system of the government?
No, see, our program is for both skilling, reskilling, and upskilling. And the main tool which we have, the two tools we have is the PMKVI for the short-term training and the ITI system for the long-term training. So youth is a target, but we have programs where you can skill yourself, upskill yourself, and reskill yourself. And we also provide services for to other industry if they want to skill their workers further, upskill them further. That also we can do. No problem with that. So that is that.
Do government employees or employees belonging to state governments and central government who want to get capacity building training, will they come under your schemes?
So our schemes, the existing schemes are driven more for sake of employment. Objective is to make employable youth. Government itself has a lot of programs for skilling their youths, but any ministry or any state government, if it wants to skill a set of people according to one, like we are working with the Ministry of Women and Child Development for training the Anganwadi workers into emergency medical relief. Okay. So that if some accidents happen in the or some emergency medicine, so they should be equipped to handle that. So that way, and we work with the Ministry of Home for training on the skill of the stenotypists had gone up. So these things are continuously takes place. We have a MOU with the Ministry of Shipping for regarding the shipping. So these things take care of, but this is not part of our regular programs. This is one-to-one MOU which we have, under which we take up.
Of course,
take up works which as per the requirement of various ministries.
Of course. So, Skill India, one of the key mandates of your ministry, completed 5 years of its operations last July. I mean, how do you describe how significant is this period for you and ministry? What were the priorities that you set in the first phase?
So when this ministry was launched, one of the major things which was kept in mind was harnessing the demographic dividend. India was one of the few countries with a young population. True. And this demographic dividend would have remained with us for next 20-25 years. And after that, our population also, like the developed country population, would have become an aging population. So it was, and the objective was to harness this youth for productive purposes by skilling them. And it had to be done with speed, because we had only 20 years, at a scale, high scale level, because our scale was very poor, and a good quality. Quality means the industry should be able to expect it. And one of the objectives also was to make it aspirational. What is happening today, I want to stress on that. Still, the middle class thinks skilling to be below their aspirational level. They prefer their children to go to regular graduation, masters, instead of giving to skilling. So that had to be brought in to make the skilling aspiration. So with these four objectives of speed, scale, quality, and as making it aspirational, all the programs were launched. These are the priorities. And we have not done bad. Through the central government efforts itself, in the last 5 years, 5.5 crore people have been trained. I mean, including other ministries which also do the training, our ministry. Plus, we have also fee-based courses, which is run by, not under programs, but by institutions which run the fee-based courses. 5.5 crore people have been trained in the last 5 years, which is an appreciable number. If you see that our population was 120 crores, so 5.5 have been skilled, especially under this last 5 years. In addition, states have their own skilling program. So you can add another 1 or 2 crore in that also. So a large number have been trained in the last 5 years. What has happened, if you see, broadly. One is there's been tremendous expansion of access to skilling. Earlier, the access, even if I wanted to get skilled, I didn't know where to go to. The access has gone up. The short-term training ecosystem was very, very poor. I mean, very small. So the number of this training partners have gone up from 3,000 to more than 15,000, and training centers, almost 70,000 training centers in the country. The ITI has also gone up from 1.5 times, from 10,000 to 15,000, around 1484 is the right number. Apprenticeship, which is a very prominent skilling method in the entire in the world, in the other parts of the world, there attempts were made to ease the process of doing apprenticeship, and it has seen an increase from around less than a lakh, around 90,000 per year, to around 2.6 lakhs per year. The biggest thing has happened that we have set up a regulatory ecosystem. Earlier, anybody could have taken a skilling course from anywhere and taken a certificate. I, as an employer, would not have known that what is the person's competency who has come with a certificate that this person knows plumbing. So this value of the certificate was not there. So a regulatory system has been brought in. The national skill qualification framework has been standardized, where based on the various levels, you know what is the competency of the person who has done that. Then the concept of national occupational standards were brought in, and qualification packs. So you know that, and around more than 4,000 job roles qualification packs have been prepared and put on the public domain for people to adopt. And last, we had brought in a unified regulator in terms of National Council of Vocational Education and Training, which will ensure anyone now having an NCVT certified certificate will take a message that he has a certain minimal qualification. The quality part has been done more through by association with the industry. The assumption is if the quality is not there, industry won't employ you. So that quality is reflected, that placement has gone up. Earlier in 2014, the placement in the training was around 10 to 15%. It has gone up to around 57%. It's still not 100%. It's 57% of the people who are trained in the system. Equity is seen that is one of the few programs where the women participation is more than 50%. It's almost 51% in PMKV. Most programs you see women, especially where skills are involved, women will be a minor thing. But here around 51% has been there. For aspirational, success is not that much, but a lot of steps have been taken, like bringing in convocations in ITI so that we have a feeling that we are equivalent to formal education. Equating ITI to the formal education through an NIUS certification. Then international benchmarking. Was it international? So your qualifications are benchmarked with the international qualifications so that you are employable abroad. Once you are employable abroad, general feeling is that person goes up the social ladder. So aspirations of others to do scaling will go up. And lastly, a lot of new courses, that what we call IR 4.0 courses, have been brought in scaling also, including cloud computing, data analytics, drone technology. All these things have been robotics. All these things have been brought in the scaling, both in the short term and long term. So these things have journey has been very satisfying, but along we are at somewhere in the middle. We have to do much more in the coming years.
What were the challenges you faced in the process of putting these standards and processes?
So, see, we were for standards and processes, we are starting from ground zero. Okay. The acceptance of this certification amongst the industry, that is a challenge which is still there. Because what industry, the bigger industry prefers perhaps still to take untrained people and train it themselves and then they employ them, instead of relying on a certified person who has come there. So acceptance of certificate is not a statutory thing. It's not mandatory to have a certificate by NCVT. So we have to popularize this certificate. It's like a BIS, ISI mark. So ISI mark may not be mandatory, but we know ISI mark means quality. So that is the challenge we have to do.
True.
Second challenge is the industry linkage has been, while we have tried, much of the industry has been very lukewarm. The reasons for two things. One thing, the major industry is anyway has been on board. The other industry, but 80 to 90% of the industry is of a size less than 10 manpower. So there the skilling demand may be less, because one thing is that because if you have skilled manpower, you may have to pay a higher amount, so that feeling is there. And they prefer to have person of jack of all trades. He will do X also, Y also, Z also. And other problem was that apart from that, 90% of our sector, economic sector, is informal. The skilling is not a premium. So these are the challenges where we wanted to penetrate more, as make the skilling as a uniform thing, which we have to address. So we are trying to address them by bringing in multi-skills kind of training, job roles, where a person can do three, four skills instead of only one skill, so that he gets employable in a small establishment also.
Thank you. Thank you. How effectively the ministry using the technology in building learning resources, and what are your ongoing initiatives in building resources, if you can explain?
See, technology is being used in the various parts of our skilling spectrum. One part is like the management of skilling. So that is being totally done through technology. We have the Skill India portal, where we manage the skilling right from the onboarding of a trainee and right up to the time he is certified and money released to the training provider for the training done. This includes attendance monitoring. We have a Aadhaar-based monitoring which is monitored every day at the portal. Then includes assessment. So all these things is monitored. Then the trainers, the affiliation accreditation of trainers are done totally through the online system. Then we are now developing a skill, like an app. We are in the process. I think in 1 month we'll be launching it. I want to skill myself. Now, if I ask you, if you want to get skilled as a plumber, you won't know where to go to. You will Google and all that. If you know that how to Google, I mean, the clientele which you may not be knowing how to Google, they won't know. I want to skill myself is a software which will take you through your aptitudes, what you would like to do, what kind of training you would like to have, what are the opportunities, and it is both. And then finally, suggest that you can train here. The local training is available here. You can train here. You can register yourself for the training center. Or if it's an exam-based training center, then register it for the exam for which training can be taken. And you can, and realizing that our clientele is the dropouts of the schools. So they are not people equipped with high-end mobile devices. At best, they may be having a 5,000 rupees phone on which they WhatsApp, and so it is to enable them to access this. And as far as the course content is concerned, we have two portals. One is the Bharat Skills, where the ITI courses which are done on part of it can be done on the portal. It was found very useful on during the COVID. So, and during the COVID, around 20 lakh unique users access this portal to equip themselves further, since the ITIs were closed during the COVID times. Similarly, for short-term skilling, we have this eSkill India portal where 40 courses are onboarded. 40 free courses are. They are free. Anyone can access that, onboarded. What we are trying, based on the COVID experience, that to shift from physical skilling, 100% physical skilling, to blended skilling. So skilling we have to train with your hands at the end, except for some few computer-based courses where you can train without using. So entire 100% online skilling may not be possible for most skills, but we can have a blended where you can have some components which you can consume through your phone, and some components which you have to come to a classroom or the lab to equip yourself. So for this session, from this 2021 session, ITI session, once it opens, the admission process is going on. Then 6 courses covering 75% of the ITI population. ITI population is around 24 lakhs, of which 14 lakh are new ones. So 70% of this 14 lakh population will be taken through a blended course. The content has been developed for it. So it will be a mix of online and physical. So you will consume something online, come to the classroom or to the lab, refresh yourself, clarify yourself, whatever doubts you have, and then go back with new assignments to be done online. So that blended learning, which will cover 75% of the ITI population. And similarly for short term, these 40 courses we are going to expand, and each course we are trying to identify, because we can't have a common formula blended how much percentage should be online, how much should be physical. Each job role will have a different component. Other thing, we can have more of VR and AR in our, we are trying content development, so that the actual lab experience, go through the lab experience without being in the lab. Only at the end you may go to the lab and equip yourself. So all this process is a going on process. And we have also partnered with major players like Microsoft, etc., who have partnered in bringing their own courses. They're given us free those courses. And then, as I said, new technology courses we have been doing anyway. So these things, technology is being used quite a large.
So apart from industry and IT companies like Microsoft and others, do you see a bigger role aligning with the education system like high universities in the country? Do you see
Yeah,
as a
that's
participatory in this?
that's a good point you have raised. You must have heard that National Education Policy, which was launched recently in July, has advocated on a seamless migration from vocational to formal, formal to vocational. So both for the school education system and the formal education system, we have plans in place for the higher education system. The higher education system, what we want is more that the any graduate, plain graduate, not a BTech or someone who is doing BA or BSc. One of the problems in the country is we have unemployable graduates who have become graduates, but they are not able to get employed. So we have suggested to UGC, and we are in talks with the UGC, that while he is doing his graduation, some of the credits he can acquire through doing a vocational course. UGC is already permitted for apprenticeship. We want to expand it further to include even ITI and short-term trainings. That you can, while main credits will be, suppose you are doing BA economics, the main credits will be for economics, 40 to 50%. Other credits which are choice-based, there you are allowed to take credits outside the university system, in under either in an industry for apprenticeship, or in an ITI, or in a short-term training approved training provider. So by the time he graduates, so he will get 2 degrees. One degree will be his university degree. Other, he will get a vocational certificate which can use to get employed. So that is one part. Other part, we are trying to develop a credit framework, so the credits get transferred easily. So ITI person can join a formal education system if he wants to, and formal education system person can go to a BWOP course to do a vocational training, and credits get transferred. For school system, the plan is that between class 6 to 8, the students will be exposed to experiential training, and for 9 to 12th, one job role will be taken, and 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, they will complete different levels of NSQF. In 9th, they may cover level 2, then 10th, level 3, 11th, level 4, and 12th, level 5. So when they come out, they will come out with a ITI equivalent degree certificate when they pass 12th also. That everyone will get it. So 2 advantages. One, suppose the students who drop out, they are employable. Second, they will make skill aspirational. If everyone, if the rich person's child also is doing ITI course, the skill will become aspirational over a period of one generation. It won't be looked down. So that will, because now what happens that even if you get a higher salary due to doing a skilled job, you are looked down compared to a person who is doing a desk job. He thinks that he is higher in the social ladder. So that thing has to be addressed. So that also will help. So this work is going on. It's work in process.
So your ministry is fortunate to get adequate budgets to run these schemes essentially across the country. And your program, one popular program, Skill India, has completed 5 years. What is the phase 2 plan? Is it under your radar currently?
No, phase 2, we have a lot of, like 5 years we have done. Fortunately, now is the time to examine what we have done, evaluate, and do some course corrections and see for the next 5 years.
Okay.
So we have done quite a lot of things we have planned for this next 5 years. The first thing in the long-term training system, perhaps we need to rejuvenate the ITIs. ITIs have been there for a long time. It's been funded by the states. They've been set up by the states. We don't fund it directly, but we are part of the regulatory structure where we control the standards, examinations, curriculum. So I think time to assist the ITIs to rejuvenate themselves for the modern world which is coming. So that is one part we want to take up, where ITIs get modernized and become ready to be equipped to deal with the new world, especially linked with the Atmanirbhar Bharat. The requirement of skilled person will go up for manufacturing and other things. So ITIs should be able to adapt and build up infrastructure to be able to do it. Train trainers, get teachers, all those things will be there. In short term, we are trying to bring in a demand-driven skill development. Already we are driven in terms of industry demand. We want to bring in another facet of demand development where the youth can demand what kind of skilling we want to do. So district skill committees, so district is getting involved. They will prepare district plans on the requirement of skilling to be done in the districts. So that was a missing element. So that is being brought in. So and there the youth will register themselves that we want to get skilled in these job roles. So far the system was the training provider is to mobilize the people to be trained. Now this will be a demand driven. It will be people will demand this kind of skilling and we have to provide the skilling. Other part we want to do is to strengthen our regulatory system and slowly perhaps from executive one, make it a statutory one over 2-3 years of time. Once the system becomes robust enough, then perhaps we can think of bringing a statutory regulatory system so that the certified skilled workers becomes a mandatory kind of for various jobs and all that. And then any training, any certification should be as per the norms given by the regulators, so that the certificates become uniform over time. Other thing, as I already said, that we are focusing on a seamless migration between the formal system and the vocational system. They should become facet of the same human development. That whether I want to do skilling and after some brain I want to do formal education, I can take the credits I have done for skilling. That is the other part. So that's why the credit framework we want to develop. And entrepreneurship, we want to develop a program for our skilled graduates, those who are passing ITAs or short-term works. They want to develop, want to run short-term, some small businesses, like even they want a beauty parlor they want to open, or they want to run a barber shop locally. So they are enabled to do it, so that we want to bring a mini MBA, 2 months crashed course, compressed course, or maybe we call it mini MBA, so that people who have aptitude for business, and everyone can't do a business, so those who have aptitude for business and want to do business, or those who want to go up the scale, like a person who is selling, I say, golgappas on a ready, that on the hand cart. He may like to go up the scale and put a proper shop with the various kinds of ingredients, that kind of thing, if he wants to go up. So all those, that kind of entrepreneur. I'm not talking about the startups and etc. I'm talking about this last level entrepreneurs, street level entrepreneurs, for them to develop a system on that. So an apprenticeship, we want to make it into a mass movement. Problem in India is Germany, etc. is totally driven by apprenticeship. That is one of the best methods of skilling. So we want to make it more liberal, the apprenticeship structure, so the industry doesn't get harassed in taking up apprentices, and they become much forward in taking up apprentices. That is another part of our aim which we want to do. This is the broad areas we are working on.
A hypothetical question. With improved relations of India, bilateral relationship with other countries, do you see any collaborations with international markets?
We are already collaborating with international markets. We have benchmarked many of our qualifications with UK, Australia, Middle East, both Saudi Arabia and UAE. And we are working now after the COVID thing, we realized that a lot of health workers will be required in developed countries also. I'm not talking about nurses and all that, which the health ministry is taking care of. I'm talking about like general duty assistant, the geriatric assistants, and those jobs are very much required. So what we have done, we are working with separately with each country in terms of their what kind of a regulation they have, what kind of skills required, and what is the gap between that skill and preparing our bridge course for that, so that the person who wants to go there. And we are trying to talk with the potential employers in those countries that so that we can supply health workers. Similarly, we can do for other skills also. Already around 80 skills have been mapped with UK, around 43 with Australia, and 15 with Saudi Arabia. So these things have been done. In Japan, we have a program where we are sending interns to Japan. Well, though they get trained for 2-3 years and then they become employable there. So Japan also, we have that TITP program in Japan where interns are being sent for interning in the Japanese companies. So it's a continuous process, and I think the mutual recognition, that is one thing we can focus on, that they can start recognizing our skill certification. That's why a strong regulator is also required. And if there's a gap, you can have bridge courses like Germany related bridge course, if you compare to that, which can be recognized by the regulators in those countries, or as the authority that okay, someone certified from this system is eligible to work here. If that is the aim which we are working on.
So how do you see the participation of state governments into your schemes?
The state governments have this, like as I said, ITIs are owned by the state governments, the government ITIs. Private ITIs are there who also are regulated partly by the state governments, and we regulate the standards, examination, curriculum, etc. So they are participants anyway in the long-term training. In the short-term training, what was happening that we had bifurcated our program into two parts. One part was given to the state government, one part was done directly by us through our National Skill Development Corporation. Now, the National Skill Development Corporation was doing the training independently of the state governments most of the time. Now, what we are trying to bring in the state governments in terms of mobilization, monitoring, even the districts, so that, as I said, so they can decide, and deciding which job roles are important for the people of the state. Those inputs will be involved, and more interaction will take place with the state governments in most of the schemes. Apprenticeship, we are trying to have an outreach with the state government so that they can do a better monitoring of apprenticeship and trying to mobilize the industries which are under their ambit as per the Apprenticeship Act to take up apprenticeship there.
So what is the way forward for the ministry? Of course, as we see, budgets are coming up for 2021 and 22. Do you have any significant initiatives for expansions to be tabled in the budget?
The budget is something which finance department will decide what is going to be included based on the resources available.
Oh, sure.
So that they will decide. But we have a number of funded and non-funded schemes in mind, which we have proposed. I think it's premature to discuss before the budget comes. So let us see what comes in the budget. But as I had mentioned, that when you asked that what is the future things which you want to take up. So I listed things which you want to do. And basically the target is to increase access, improve the quality, and make certified skilling acceptable to the industry in general. That is a multiple target based on these various interventions we will take.
You said you have signed 1,000 memorandum of understandings. Can you elaborate these? What type of?
No, this memorandum of understanding, the ITI signs with the industry nearby. This thousands is not by the ministry. It is signed by the ITI, one ITI with the industry. So what happens in that, after that, this is for dual system of training. So in that, what happens? The students of the ITI, so one of the complaints is that the training which you get in the ITIs doesn't equip you to work on the shop floor, because normally the equipment may be a bit older, shop floor would have got a new equipments, then you have to retrain those graduates. So towards that time, so they get a straight away shop floor experience. They get trained on the shop floor itself. So part of the training does takes place in the ITI, and part of it takes place in the industry. We call it dual system of training. So for each ITI can sign a MOU with any industry, a number of industries for taking the have a dual system of training kind of concept. So that has been, so that is the concept where 1,000 MOUs have been signed. The ITIs have signed with the industries, and it can't be far away from the ITI because children can't go far away. It has to be close by. So with the industry close by, where they get trained in the latest on the shop floor experience, so that when they pass out from ITI, they are employable straight away. They don't have to retrain them, and so similar industries can employ them straight away. That is another initiative towards improving the quality of the ITI graduates.
So when can we expect your new underdevelopment of your mobile application?
I think that development application, the first cut was shown to me, and another month we plan to, perhaps in January, we will be able to launch it.
Who is developing, sir? Who is developing?
We have a technological partner. We have been developing through a technological partner.
Okay.
We're doing it through that.
Okay. Any unaccomplished task in your ministry which you want to achieve within this financial year?
So what we are like the new PMKY 3.0 we have, in that we are, as I said, we are shifting to youth demand driven system where districts will be involved, which were not involved. So target will be to operationalize that, or make it very effective this year, so that from next year onwards, the district driven demand becomes a routine kind of thing. That is one of the objectives for this year. Second objective is that the apprenticeship, we want to increase it 10x. So what steps to be taken for increasing apprenticeship, including advocacy and the amendment of the act if necessary, and new scheme to be formulated. And then we want to formulate all those schemes which I mentioned and take it through the approval process in the balance of the year, so that in 21-22 we are start afresh, start batting straight away. When this year starts, so all the schemes will be in position. That is the target. And now we started with IIM Bangalore, Mahatma Gandhi National Fellow. We are funding a fellowship program in IIM Bangalore. We funded 75 fellows who were allocated to 75 districts. So they stayed some time in IIM Bangalore and balanced part in the districts, both learning and training, both together. They were training the district people and learning the skilling system. And finally, they will be certified by the IIM Bangalore, that is our fellows. So it was successful. So now we are going to expand it to all the districts in the country. We have tied up with 8 other IIMs.
Oh, very good.
8 other IIMs, and all of 8 IIMs have come forward to participate in this partnership. So all districts we have from 1st of April, Mahatma Gandhi National Fellows. So now we'll be advertising for selecting the fellows, and it's done centrally by the IIM Bangalore for advertising, and they select the fellows. So that the kind of partnership we have tied up, so districts get strengthened over time. That is one of the major objectives.
Sir, on the 10x note, I would like your message to the industry, a strong message.
See, industries I like, though we have been going out, reaching out, trying to design a program as per industry. But the industry in general have not been participating directly in many of they participate through their representative like CII or FICCI or other things. But directly in apprenticeship, I would like them to participate in the apprenticeship program. The sector skill councils we have found, but many of the industries are not engaged with the sector skill council. That projecting what kind of demand we have, what are the changes in the sector we anticipate in 1 year, these jobs also disappear. Perhaps a better engagement with the sector skill council by the industry will be very useful in giving us right trends and equipping ourselves to train on this trends, train our people, skilling ourselves. And any investment which industries want to bring in, they should always have a component to study what kind of skilling they want to, skilled workers. And if they communicate to us, we can develop the skilled workers for those industry. So that will also we can do. A more engagement with their institutions and skilling and our institutions, that will be very useful.
Wonderful, sir. Wonderful, sir. On this note, I would like to thank you very much for giving opportunity to interact with you, sir. a wonderful interaction ET government has with you, and understand your skill development initiatives for the last 6 years, and going forward, all your plans. I would like to wish you all the best for your future endeavor.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Radhakrishnan sir. I hope the message goes to the industry and they come forward more in participation in the scaling
Absolutely,
initiatives.
absolutely, sir.